Our boy watches the doors slowly creak open as his gaze turns dark and obsessive, settling on the beautiful woman sitting on the balcony. In this vision, our girl looks absolutely radiant as she turns toward him with a bright, welcoming smile, calling him by his name as if he's the only person in her world. He immediately ditches his composure, stepping toward her with a look of pure determination before sweeping her into a passionate kiss. As he holds her, he feels a sense of completion, as if he is finally grasping something he has hungered for his entire life. But reality hits like a bucket of ice water as he springs up in bed, drenched in sweat and realizing it was all just a dream. He lets out a frustrated sigh and clenches his fist, calling himself a fool for letting his brain play him like this again. He knows that in the real world, she would never be that affectionate. Instead of his name, she would address him as Your Highness with eyes full of tears and a face that screams she'd rather be anywhere else. He stares into space, wondering why he can't seem to scrub the name Olivia Liberty from his memory, even after all this time. Taking a trip back to 2 years ago, we find our boy buried in a schedule that's getting busier by the minute. His aide is rattling off a list of audiences with the king, banquet interviews, and charity galas that would make anyone's head spin. Before the assistant can finish the itinerary, a sudden crash echoes through the palace. Our boy doesn't even look surprised, calmly counting down from 3 as if he's waiting for a scheduled explosion. Right on cue, a loud bang rings out and a man comes flying out of a room like he's been evicted by a hurricane. The man on the floor is the Duke of Herod, and he is currently looking up at his brother, the king, and begging for a little bit of sibling mercy. The king is absolutely vibrating with rage, throwing newspaper headlines at his brother's head like they're weapons. The front pages are screaming about the Duke's outrageous arrogance, detailing how he threw a royal tantrum at a pub and refused to pay his tab. When the Duke tries to play it off by claiming the commoners started it, the king grabs a heavy candlestick and looks ready to beat the royal dignity back into him. Our boy steps in just in time to catch the king's hand, acting as the only thing standing between the Duke and a very painful headache. The Duke clings to our boy's leg like a drowning man, while the king demands to be let go so he can finish the job. It's a complete circus of bickering and leg clinging, and our boy quickly realizes the entire staff is watching the royal family fall apart in real time. He shuts the whole thing down with a firm command, reminding them both that there are way too many eyes on this disaster. The king finally lowers the candlestick but doesn't let the Duke off easy, putting him under immediate house arrest until the scandal dies down. Back in the office, the king sighs over the disastrous press and asks our boy if he's seen the damage. The king stresses that with tensions high, the royal family absolutely cannot afford to let these rumors of them looking down on commoners spread. They need to pacify the public. Our boy interrupts, already knowing the drill. He just needs to do whatever it takes to bury the front page in some other spicy gossip. The king jokingly calls him perverse for his methods. Just as he asks to be excused, the king drops a heavy reminder. His brother, Asura, is the crown prince and therefore needs to maintain a flawless, authoritative image. As the other prince, it falls on our boy to step up and handle the messy situations. Our boy internally groans, bracing himself for another round of playing the scapegoat. We are then blessed with a quick history lesson. Norfolk is the largest continent in existence, and while the kingdom of Herod currently reigns supreme, times are rapidly changing. Republics are popping up, and the very real stirrings of revolution are beginning to spread across the land. This shifting political landscape is exactly why our boy is forced to play the royal clown. After a tedious day of camera flashes and exhausting royal duties, our boy collapses into his carriage seat and asks about the morning papers. His assistant, Mason, confirms that the Duke's pub brawl is still the only thing people are talking about, but then he spots a single outlier. There is one headline that doesn't mention the Duke at all. It's a story about a young woman named Olivia Liberty, the youngest graduate ever from the Republic's most prestigious university. Our boy is intrigued. Realizing she's the first commoner to ever pull off such a feat according to Mason, she's become a total celebrity among the people, not just for her brain but for her stunning looks as well. As Mason starts fanboying over her beauty, our boy's gears start turning. He realizes this girl is the perfect distraction to wipe his uncle's mistakes off the front page. With a new plan in mind, he orders the carriage to head straight back to the palace, ready to use this rising star to save the royal family's reputation. The era of stuffy nobility finally crashed and burned, proving that fancy titles no longer guaranteed a fat bank account. Those exhausted by the relentless discrimination packed up and built a fresh start on a newfound continent, establishing the Republic of Polder. It earned a sparkling reputation as a land of equal opportunity and zero prejudice, but as we quickly learn, reality is a little less utopian. We cut to our girl aggressively questioning why she cannot join the official research team. Sitting across from her is Anson, the president of the Wilhelm Corporation, who cheerfully delivers a massive dose of misogyny. He casually dismisses the idea, asking how a girl could possibly belong on a corporate research team. Our girl points out the glaring fact that she literally invented the magic dome currently being sold worldwide. Anson brushes this off, reminding her that the product only succeeded because they registered it under the fake male name, Elias Oliver. He happily gaslights her, bringing up her university days when a room full of dusty, sexist scholars snickered at her presentation, dismissing her genius as just a girl's lively imagination. Back in the present, our girl practically grinds her teeth into dust. Anson plays the victim, asking why she is being so greedy when he supposedly did her a massive favor by hiding her identity. Our girl internally screams, wondering how wanting credit for her own invention is considered greed. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife as they stare each other down across the coffee shop table. Anson sighs and asks if she is just throwing a fit over money. He chuckles, condescendingly offering to keep paying her living expenses as long as she stays quietly in the shadows as Oliver. Utterly disgusted, our girl snatches the cash off the table. She firmly corrects him, stating this is not an allowance, but the payment she is rightfully owed, before storming off. Meanwhile, the toxic man just watches her walk away, creepily thinking about how cute she looks when she is angry. Pacing herself in the hotel hallway, our girl tries to talk herself off a ledge. She rationalizes that at least this month's living expenses are covered, and she just needs to hurry home and fire off her resume to other companies, though the fear of endless rejection is eating at her. Her internal pep talk is rudely interrupted by the sharp click of heels. Enter Lady Wilhelm, radiating pure aristocratic disdain. She greets our girl with thinly veiled venom, spelling out exactly how unpleasant it is to bump into her. The older woman goes straight for the throat, shaming our girl for meeting a man at a hotel in broad daylight like some scandalous floozy. Baffled by the sheer audacity, our girl snaps back, clarifying that hotel reception rooms are literally built for business meetings. Lady Wilhelm scoffs, demanding to know what possible business a peasant could have with the head of the Wilhelm Corporation. Our girl opens her mouth to declare her ownership of the magic dome, but the traumatic echo of those laughing university scholars paralyzes her, forcing her to swallow her pride and stay silent. Right on cue, Anson strolls in, and Lady Wilhelm instantly transforms from a venomous viper into a doting mother. The toxic man acts totally oblivious, asking our girl why she hasn't left yet. Clutching her hard-earned money, our girl glares at him and demands he never schedule a meeting at a hotel again to spare her from these ridiculous misunderstandings. She mentally screams that the magic dome is hers, not his, but ultimately decides this garbage fire of a family is not worth her energy. She formally declares that they will never need to meet again and turns her back on them for good. As she walks away, Lady Wilhelm gasps at the sheer disrespect. When he chuckles, she immediately grabs her son's face and delivers a harsh reality check. She reminds him that even though Polder is technically a republic, the old nobility still holds all the cards. She strictly forbids him from associating with a peasant girl if he plans on expanding his business. Anson just smiles his charming smile and promises his mother he never will. Later, our girl is sitting alone in a carriage, staring down at her old notebook of brilliant ideas. The sight triggers a bittersweet memory from their childhood. In the flashback, a young Anson is absolutely amazed by her blueprints, realizing she figured out a way to use the gravitational pull between mana to attack hundreds of monsters simultaneously instead of fighting them one by one. Little our girl is glowing with pride, excitedly making explosion sound effects and proudly announcing that she has decided to name her invention a magic dome. Snapping back to the harsh present, the weight of the betrayal finally breaks her. Her eyeballs are sweating real tears as she frantically wipes her face, desperately whispering to herself to stop crying and hold it together. In just a century, Polder leveled up enough to rival the kingdom of Herod. The previous king of Herod, trying to play a massive game of political chess, decided to smooth things over by gifting them the Herolton University campus as a peace offering. At that very university, our girl is currently sitting in the president's office, staring down a heartbreaking rejection letter. Despite her ridiculous qualifications and undeniable potential, The company hit her with the classic excuse that she just didn't pass the application review. She lets out a heavy sigh, instantly stressing over how she is going to break the bad news to her grandmother. Suddenly, the door clicks open and the university president, Margaret Astrid, strolls in. Our girl immediately tries to shove the rejection letter behind her back, but Margaret takes one look at her guilty expression and instantly does the math. The professor casually remarks that our girl is way better off avoiding a company run by total idiots who cannot recognize real talent. Our girl laughs and pulls the letter back out, apologizing that she failed even with Margaret's glowing letter of recommendation. Margaret completely brushes off the apology, practically fuming that those absolute fools dared to reject her personal endorsement and swearing they will regret it. Cooling down, the professor hands over a fancy envelope stamped with Herod's royal seal. Our girl is completely baffled as to why the royal palace would be writing to her, but a quick read reveals she is officially invited to the autumn banquet as a guest of honor. Blushing and utterly confused, she asks why on earth they want her there. Margaret spills the tea, explaining that the royal family's resident troublemaker is dominating the tabloids again, and the palace wants to use her massive popularity to scrub the front pages clean. Our girl is genuinely shocked that her simple presence could shift public opinion, proving she is entirely oblivious to her own celebrity status. Margaret asks if she actually wants to go. Our girl admits she would love to visit Herod, but the logistics are a nightmare. Factoring in a 3-week journey each way plus the actual stay, she would be gone for at least a month and a half. Her biggest hesitation is leaving her grandmother alone. Margaret immediately crushes that excuse, promising to send someone to look after her grandmother and offering to personally escort our girl so she does not get eaten alive by high society. With that safety net in place, our girl excitedly agrees. Fast forward to our girl pitching the idea to her grandmother, who instantly shuts it down with a hard no. Cue the absolute fastest, most desperate whining session in history. Our girl speedruns through all the benefits, aggressively explaining that expenses are fully covered, Professor Margaret is chaperoning, and a live-in caretaker will be provided. Internally, her grandmother is sweating, knowing that throwing a pretty commoner girl into the snake pit of high society is incredibly dangerous. However, she notices how brightly our girl is sparkling. Remembering a dark incident from the past, the grandmother realizes this is the first time in ages our girl has looked this genuinely thrilled about life. Defeated by the puppy dog eyes, she finally caves. Our girl lights up with pure joy, thanking her before packing her bags for her royal adventure. 3 weeks later, over at a polo club in Herod, our thirsty prince is sipping wine with 3 noblemen who are absolutely vibrating with gossip. They desperately ask if the rumors are true, and if the Angel of Polder is really attending the banquet. Our boy confirms it, watching them lose their minds with excitement while he silently judges them for being completely pathetic. He quickly bursts their bubble, warning them not to get their hopes up because his terrifying Aunt Margaret is personally escorting the guest of honor. The 3 nobles instantly freeze, their souls practically leaving their bodies as they process the fact that the formidable Princess Margaret is returning. Sweating with fear, they try to rationalize the situation, guessing the princess only favors the girl because she is the only female student. Our boy just sips his wine, internally roasting their absolute stupidity. He knows his aunt well enough to know she doesn't hand out favors for free. Realizing the professor actually respects this girl, our boy mentally prepares himself, figuring his new PR distraction is going to be a lot harder to manipulate than he originally planned. The night of the highly anticipated banquet arrives, and our girl is currently second-guessing her wardrobe choices. Looking absolutely gorgeous but incredibly understated, she asks the professor if it is truly acceptable to skip a proper ball gown. Margaret internally admits that dressing her as plainly as possible was a strategic survival tactic, knowing full well that putting this already glowing girl in a glamorous gown would make her dangerously distracting to a room full of predatory nobles. Out loud, the professor simply assures her that she already stands out plenty, and adding a gown would be overkill. Our girl playfully whines about the lack of glamour, earning a polite chuckle from the maids in the room. Instantly embarrassed by the unexpected audience, our girl clumsily tries to pivot the conversation, bringing up the 2 royal princes who supposedly look alike. Margaret sees right through the terrible transition but plays along, explaining the color-coding system for the royal siblings. Crown Prince Usher has the blue eyes, while Prince Noah sports the green eyes tinged with red. Our girl silently repeats this to herself like she is cramming for a final exam. They arrive at the banquet hall, and the sheer scale of the massive doors sends our girl's heart into overdrive. Sensing her rising panic, Margaret delivers a solid pep talk, reminding her to carry herself with the exact same confidence she had back in Polder. After all, she is an official guest of the royal house and has zero reason to shrink in front of anyone. Our girl gives herself a mental pep talk, confidently assuming this cannot be that different from the parties back at Harrowington University. But the second those giant doors swing open, her entire argument collapses. The crushing opulence of the royal court is absolutely overwhelming. Instructed to walk a step behind the professor, our girl feels the heavy, judgmental stares of the high society crowd locking onto her. She suddenly realizes that without Margaret acting as a human shield, she would have been eaten alive by these elitist aristocrats. The tension spikes as the royal family approaches, greeting President Margaret, who we learn is also the princess. The professor instructs our girl to step up and pay her respects. Utterly terrified of making a catastrophic mistake, our girl attempts a formal curtsy, but her trembling legs completely betray her. She staggers, fully preparing to eat the expensive marble floor and heavily regretting her decision to leave Polder. But she never hits the ground. A pair of strong arms catches her, and when she looks up, she is met with a pair of intense green eyes. She softly breathes Prince Noah's name as they share a highly charged staring contest. Our girl's brain suddenly reboots. She blushes fiercely, internally screaming at herself to get a grip, bows, and profusely thanks him for the save. Noah smoothly replies that it was his pleasure, and he is glad she is not hurt.
What?
Noah glares right back, silently demanding they stop staring and move on with the formalities. The royal family is in a state of absolute shock, completely bewildered that the usually cynical prince actually bothered to catch a falling woman instead of just watching gravity do its job. Margaret steps up to formally greet the king, her eyes flashing a silent demand for an explanation regarding his son's unusually heroic behavior. The king offers a polite welcome, his own expression screaming that he has absolutely no clue what has gotten into Noah either. Crown Prince Usher politely greets our girl, who nervously replies that the honor is entirely hers. The king clears his throat to break the awkward tension, just as the doors swing open to reveal the true enemy. A mob of hungry reporters stands there, their eyes shining like absolute creeps desperate for a scoop, while the rest of the royal family silently resents the exhausting political circus. The photographer immediately demands a group picture for the front page and directs our girl to stand next to Prince Noah. She nervously shuffles over, keeping a very safe, respectable distance. Noah smooths over the gap by suggesting she step closer to keep the picture balanced. She takes one tiny, hesitant step. Noah responds by taking a massive step toward her, completely closing the distance and making her flinch. Standing entirely too close, she catches the pleasant scent of his cologne. Her traitorous brain decides the scent suits him perfectly, which instantly sends her into a panic spiral for having such inappropriate, non-professional thoughts about royalty. Trembling and blushing fiercely, she actively avoids eye contact while the camera clicks, perfectly capturing the poised royal family and one deeply stressed commoner. Later on, the queen watches the endless press junket with growing concern, noting that their guest of honor hasn't even had a moment to eat dinner. She considers intervening, but our boy advises her to give up, pointing out that his father is having the time of his life. During the interview, our girl flawlessly fields a question about Harrowington University, delivering a perfectly polished, PR-friendly response about its leading role in Polder's political and economic spheres. Watching from the sidelines, the king is absolutely thrilled. He silently praises her magnificent media training, contrasting her diplomatic perfection with his own son's habit of giving the press nothing but indifferent, one-line dismissals. The king realizes this brilliant young woman is exactly the weapon he needs to permanently bury the Duke's recent scandal. Meanwhile, the relentless camera flashes start taking a toll. The queen complains that the lights are hurting her eyes and decides to retire for the evening. Our boy gently takes her hand to escort her out, internally grateful that our girl's media marathon means he finally gets some peace and quiet. Despite maintaining a soft, angelic smile for the cameras, our girl is secretly fighting the urge to flinch at the blinding flashes. After dropping his mother off, the queen stops our boy before he can leave. She debates asking if he has a personal interest in their guest, but ultimately swallows the question. She simply requests that he take good care of the young lady. He sighs and readily agrees. Escaping the reporters at last, our girl looks incredibly pale and starved as she staggers through the venue searching for Professor Margaret. Unfortunately, She is spotted by the same 3 gossiping nobles from the Polo Club. Overcome by her beauty, they scramble out of hiding and completely swarm her. They bombard her with overlapping questions about her age, her engineering degree, and her blueprints, completely ignoring her obvious exhaustion. One even rudely interrupts to suggest she would look better in a proper gown. Our girl tries to gracefully excuse herself to find the professor, but they ruthlessly talk over her, demanding to know if she has ever danced. Just as her patience wears thin, a chilling voice demands to know what they think they are doing to a guest of the royal family. Our boy steps in with a glare cold enough to freeze time. Sweating bullets, the nobles stammer out weak excuses about just complimenting her before fleeing the scene in a total panic. Flabbergasted but deeply relieved, our girl thanks her savior. Catching sight of the professor across the massive hall, she quickly tries to excuse herself. Our boy steps in her path, pointing out the absolute minefield of eager, circling aristocrats standing between her and his aunt. He warns her that these creeping nobles will be far harder to navigate than the fools she just escaped. She suggests simply waiting by the wall until the current song ends, but he immediately crushes that plan, informing her that the orchestra does not take breaks between sets. Our girl internally groans, desperate for an escape route. Watching her stress, our boy's hand twitches before he smoothly extends it toward her. He offers to guide her across the floor himself, promising that if they dance, they can easily glide through the crowd and reach his aunt in just 3 beats. She hesitates, confessing she has 0 dancing experience. He leans in, effortlessly commanding her to simply trust him and follow his lead. The sheer proximity and his low, reassuring tone send her heart into an immediate tailspin. Trembling all over again, she completely surrenders and places her hand in his. Across the room, Margaret finally wraps up her lengthy conversation and immediately starts worrying about her student. Her train of thought derails completely when she hears the surrounding whispers and spots the 2 of them moving across the dance floor. Knowing her nephew famously despises dancing, the professor is utterly floored, wondering if a genuine romance is actually blossoming right in front of her. But not everyone is enjoying the show. Lurking in the background, a red-haired lady glares daggers at the couple, seething with absolute rage that a lowly commoner is touching her prince. The music blasts through the grand hall as our boy effortlessly takes control of the chaotic situation. He issues crisp, precise instructions, guiding our girl to take 4 steps to the right, spin twice, and place her left hand on his shoulder. With a smooth count to 4, he expertly maneuvers her across the floor. Following his lead, her initial panic melts away, replaced by an overwhelming desire to stay in this moment and keep dancing with him for just a little longer. But before she can get too comfortable, she glances to the side and completely freezes. Standing right in front of them is Professor Margaret, projecting an aura of absolute doom. Realizing they have already crossed the entire hall in record time, our boy executes a flawless, polite bow and casually excuses himself, leaving our girl to stammer out a thank you under the withering glare of his terrifying aunt. Margaret instantly pivots back to chaperone mode, asking if her student is hungry. Meanwhile, our boy walks away from the dance floor, only to be immediately ambushed by the exact same trio of entitled aristocrats from earlier. Operating with the collective self-awareness of a brick wall, these grown men actually start whining and grumbling that it was completely unfair for the prince to whisk their target away. Our boy shuts down their pathetic pity party with absolute royal frost. He coldly reminds them that any guest of the royal family will be treated with the utmost respect. As the nobles panic under his chilling gaze, he delivers a final warning, pointing out that there are eyes everywhere, and the only reason he is even speaking to them politely is because they are in public. Not too far away, another problem is quietly brewing. A red-haired noblewoman named Isabel Seymour is currently watching our boy from the shadows with the intensity of a professional stalker. She turns to a woman in a green and black dress, Lady Yovan, and desperately demands to know what she has to do to marry Prince Noah. Lady Yovan warns her that a scheme like that will take considerable time and patience. Blushing with delusional devotion, Isabel does not hesitate, demanding her companion find a way to make it happen regardless of the wait. The next morning, the palace walls practically shake with the king's booming laughter. Holding the latest newspaper, he is absolutely euphoric to see that his troublesome brother Walter has finally been completely scrubbed from the front page. Riding the high of a perfectly executed PR campaign, the king declares it a beautiful new day and orders his deeply exhausted assistant to summon Miss Liberty and the journalists at once. Later, A carriage pulls up to a stunning landscape, and our girl steps out, looking as angelic as ever. She gazes up at a massive, incredible structure and almost slips up, thinking out loud about how this is the first time she is seeing her own creation in person. Before she can accidentally claim it, Margaret smoothly interrupts, loudly identifying the building as the famous magic dome designed by the elusive Oliver. Our girl catches the hint and quickly agrees. Margaret disgustedly notes the bitter irony of their society. She points out that while the old social hierarchy is crumbling, the rampant sexism remains so painfully stubborn that a genius inventor is still denied her own patent rights simply for being a woman. Margaret grips her student's shoulder tightly, urging her to keep her proof safe and never surrender, promising that one day she will reveal the truth to the world and add yet another massive achievement to her list of firsts. Modest as always, our girl playfully argues that her professor thinks way too highly of her. Margaret jokes right back that if she is wrong, then the entire reputation of Harrowington University must be a complete scam. Their giggling is cut short by the sound of approaching wheels as the imperial family's carriage arrives. The king steps out, greeting our girl warmly and noting she arrived early. As she bows respectfully to the monarch, her eyes wander and immediately lock onto our boy. Looking effortlessly gorgeous, he catches her staring and offers a faint, genuine smile. Her brain short-circuits, instantly flashing back to the feeling of his hands during their dance the night before, and a deep blush spreads across her face. Observing this entire silent exchange, Margaret mentally files the moment away. The tension is suddenly shattered by a tiny, excited voice shouting for her auntie. Lucy Therese Astrid, the king's only daughter, runs up and throws herself into Margaret's arms for a massive hug. After a sweet reunion with her aunt, the little princess spots our girl and completely freezes, utterly captivated by her beauty. Our girl offers a polite, graceful bow and introduces herself. Lucy actually gasps, blushing furiously as she stumbles through her own introduction, thoroughly starstruck by the literal goddess standing in front of her. The king quickly clears his throat, wrangling everyone together for a group photo. As they pose, a sudden breeze sweeps through the grounds, blowing a stray lock of our girl's hair directly toward our boy's face. He calculates the situation, realizing that if he raises a hand to brush it away, he will ruin the shot and force a tedious retake. As our girl steps away, our boy reaches up to rub the exact spot where her hair touched his cheek. A secret, fleeting smile crossing his lips. But the smile quickly vanishes and his cold, indifferent mask slams right back into place. The royal entourage rolls up to Central Park, immediately greeted by a massive, swarming crowd. The Astrid family offers their perfectly practiced royal waves. Treating the roaring masses like this is just another casual Tuesday. But the crowd isn't just cheering for the crown. Chants of Olivia Liberty echo loudly through the park. Overwhelmed by the sheer wall of attention, our girl completely freezes in her tracks. Crown Prince Usher leans over to Noah, pointing out her obvious panic and whining about having to drag this PR parade out just for some photos. Noah coldly shuts his brother down, noting that indulging their father's media obsession is the absolute fastest way to get His Majesty back to the palace. Sweating under the intense spotlight, our girl frantically checks how the seasoned royals are handling the mob. Clenching her fists, she begs Professor Margaret for a lifeline. Margaret mentally kicks herself, her protective instincts flaring as she realizes she completely forgot to prep her student for her first public parade. The professor gently instructs her to simply offer a light smile and a nod. Taking a deep breath, our girl desperately searches for an internal anchor. She remembers her brutal first day at Harrowington University, realizing that unlike those snobby academics, at least this crowd isn't actively laughing at her. Finding her courage, she lets go of her fear and flashes a brilliant, radiant smile. Watching from the side, Usher is genuinely impressed, noting aloud that she catches on incredibly fast. Noah turns to see what his brother is talking about, and the moment his eyes land on her glowing expression, his meticulously crafted stoic mask completely fractures. His face twitches, and he is caught in an intense, unwavering stare. Nearby, the king is soaking up the reporter's attention like a sponge, grinning from ear to ear as he gladly takes more questions. Margaret checks in with the queen, deeply relieved that the king's tabloid-induced temper tantrums have finally been pacified. The older women turn their attention back to our girl, quickly noticing that the grueling schedule has left her looking absolutely exhausted. Just as they suggest she step back and get some rest, a media crew ambushes the queen and Margaret for a quick interview. They happily oblige, wandering off and leaving our girl standing alone. Finally gifted a moment of peace, she takes a slow look around the park. The smooth stone paths and the magnificent spires of the cathedral haven't changed a bit since her childhood. Her gaze lands on the proud golden lion statue, and a deeply buried memory washes over her. She remembers standing in this exact spot as a little girl, happily eating ice cream right under that very lion. Her grandfather had sneaked her an extra scoop while her mother fretted over a potential stomachache, and her dad simply laughed at the chaos. Back in the present, a bittersweet smile touches her lips. She realizes that chasing the ghost of that warm, happy family memory was the real reason she accepted the invitation to Herod in the first place. Her quiet nostalgia is violently interrupted when a hand suddenly brushes against her hair and gives it a sharp yank downwards. She staggers backward, her face turning pale with absolute shock. Spinning around to confront her attacker, she is completely baffled to find Prince Noah standing there. Looking just as caught off guard as she is, he stands awkwardly with his hands still outstretched, leaving our girl breathlessly questioning what on earth he is doing. Our girl manages a polite, perfectly strained smile as she nervously asks the royal prince why on earth he just yanked her hair. Noah looks completely baffled by the accusation and lets out a massive, heavy sigh. Rewinding to just a few moments ago, we find the little Princess Lucy being gently encouraged by her nanny, Miss Lemon, to go speak with the guest of honor. Lucy beamed with excitement but completely froze the second she got close, having absolutely no idea how to actually initiate a conversation. Noah spotted the tiny royal awkwardly reaching out toward our girl. In a rare break from his stoic composure, he shouted her name to stop her. The sudden, sharp scolding completely startled Lucy, causing her little hand to jerk forward and accidentally yank a handful of hair instead of gently tapping a shoulder. Back in the present, Noah stiffly offers an apology to clear the confusion. Our girl glances down and spots a tiny skirt hiding right behind his legs. Lucy nervously peeks out, looking so ridiculously adorable that it instantly diffuses the tension. Noah looks down, firmly asking the little princess what she has to say for herself. Lucy steps out of hiding and delivers a genuine apology, explaining she only meant to say hello until Noah scared the living daylights out of her. Our girl is internally stunned. Receiving a sincere, honest apology from anyone with royal blood is a statistical anomaly. She quickly realizes Noah was just trying to manage a rogue toddler and is currently fighting off his own flustered embarrassment. Crouching down to eye level, our girl flashes a warm smile and apologizes for not noticing the little royal sooner. Lucy immediately blushes, her eyes sparkling as she fiercely insists our girl has absolutely nothing to apologize for. The ice officially broken, the high-energy kid rapid-fires into conversation. She points out the giant golden lion statue, playfully wishing the royal symbol was a unicorn instead. Our girl easily plays along, agreeing that a unicorn would be wonderful. The princess giggles as they chat, even learning that Liv is Olivia's nickname. Then Lucy grabs our girl's hand, gives it a tight squeeze, and genuinely welcomes her to Herod. That pure, unfiltered kindness hits our girl right in the chest. She remembers being exactly Lucy's age during her last happy outing with her parents in this very park. Being so warmly welcomed back to a place holding such precious, fragile memories brings her to the absolute verge of tears. Looking as angelic as ever, she squeezes the little hand back and softly thanks her. Meanwhile, the king is busy rambling through his endless media interview when the sound of giggles catches his attention. He glances over, spots the beautiful commoner holding hands with his adorable daughter, and instantly recognizes a marketing goldmine. Like a shark smelling blood in the water, he immediately barks at the camera crew to start snapping pictures of the heartwarming moment. Standing quietly off to the side, Noah watches the entire chaotic circus unfold. He tracks his father's blatant PR stunt, the frantic photographers, and finally settles his intense gaze on our girl. He had clearly noticed her fighting back tears just moments ago. With his usual cynical logic, he stares at the stone lion, utterly failing to comprehend how a basic piece of civic architecture could make anyone so emotional. Looking up from her bright smile with Lucy, our girl suddenly locks eyes with Noah. A sharp jolt of tension passes between them, and overwhelmed by the heavy eye contact, she immediately snaps her gaze away. Noah's eyebrow twitches at the blatant dodge. He turns his back on the scene, internally deciding it is none of his business, especially if she refuses to even look at him. As she hears his footsteps retreating, our girl's heart hammers against her ribs. She frantically wonders why he was staring so intently. Lucy asks if something is wrong, prompting a blushing, stuttering denial. Internally, our girl admits she has no idea why she physically cannot bring herself to meet those green eyes. Her internal panic spirals as the scene shifts, leaving her desperately wondering exactly how she ended up in her current predicament. We cut to find her trapped in a moving carriage, seated directly across from a ridiculously handsome Noah, with little Lucy and Prince Usher rounding out the incredibly awkward ride. We rewind briefly, and Princess Lucy absolutely refuses to be separated from her new favorite person, clinging to our girl's legs with the unwavering determination of a barnacle. The exhausted nanny tries to enforce a strict four-person carriage limit, but Lucy bypasses her entirely, deploying a weapon of mass destruction, the ultimate toddler pout aimed directly at the queen. Defeated by the sheer power of the puppy dog eyes, the queen politely requests that our girl share a ride with the little princess. Despite the looming social discomfort, our girl nervously accepts, unable to say no when Lucy is celebrating like she just won the lottery. Heading toward her assigned carriage, our girl is greeted by a very unexpected sight: Prince Noah, casually extending a formal gloved hand to help her board. Staring up at his flawlessly stoic face, her brain struggles to compute the situation. She genuinely questions if the man who swept her across the dance floor was entirely a hallucination, because reconciling that intense, romantic memory with this walking ice sculpture is proving incredibly difficult. As she accepts his help, she suddenly feels hyper-aware of her completely bare hands resting against his pristine gloves, mentally noting that she really needs to invest in some winter accessories to save herself from future embarrassment. Once the carriage gets moving, the atmosphere inside the cabin becomes thick enough to choke on. Seated directly across from the icy prince, our girl accidentally bumps her foot against his. Pure panic instantly sets in. She silently prays he is too distracted by the scenery outside to notice the minor physical assault, meticulously retracting her foot backward like she is trying to disarm a highly sensitive bomb. She genuinely congratulates herself on a stealthy retreat until Noah lets out a low, unmistakable chuckle. Mortified, her blood runs entirely cold, realizing he noticed every single agonizing second of her awkward maneuvering. Thankfully, Lucy shatters the suffocating tension by demanding some playtime. The little princess holds up a loop of sewing thread tangled around her fingers, fully expecting a standard game of cat's cradle. Unfortunately, our girl's genius engineering brain completely blue screens. Having zero context for childhood playground games, she assumes the little royal is simply showing off some avant-garde string art. Desperate not to disappoint, our girl defaults to a painfully robotic round of applause, awkwardly complimenting the tangled thread like it belongs in a museum. Across the carriage, both Crown Prince Usher and Noah instantly decode her absolute cluelessness. Noah chuckles again at her desperate attempt to be polite, while Lucy visibly droops, complaining that every girl in Herod supposedly knows this game. Deciding to intervene, Noah slowly peels off his gloves. He smoothly takes the string from his little sister, demonstrating the weaving mechanics before offering to teach our girl himself. He patiently guides her thumbs through the loops, their bare skin brushing in the tight space. Noah flinches at the sudden contact, his train of thought entirely derailing as he hyperfixates on how ridiculously small her hands are compared to his own. But our girl is no longer paying attention to the romantic tension. Her high IQ brain has finally downloaded the physics of the string. Bypassing the beginner levels completely, she starts speedrunning the game, whipping the thread into complex geometric shapes and intricate stars that leave Lucy and Usher clapping like they are front row at a magic show. Meanwhile, Noah is left entirely sidelined by his own biology. Rubbing his fingers together, he stares down at his hand, unable to shake the lingering, electric tingle of her touch. He clenches his fists tight, deeply regretting ever taking those gloves off in the first place. The carriage finally rolls to a stop, and Crown Prince Usher announces their arrival. As our girl prepares to step out, she is met with Noah's gloved hand extended toward her yet again. After a brief second of hesitation, she accepts his help down, murmuring a quiet thank you. As she lets go, her bare hand practically hums with a lingering tingle from his touch, leaving her secretly spiraling over what exactly that electric feeling is. Stepping back, she watches the golden-haired royal family chatting and laughing together. To her, they look like a masterpiece painting titled Comfort and Love. She desperately wants to step into that warm frame, even just for a second, but an invisible barrier keeps her rooted in place. Her gaze drifts to Noah, who is standing off to the side with an expression as cold as ice. Seeing that invisible barrier triggers a painful memory from her university days. We flash back to her standing in a hallway while arrogant, aristocratic scholars hurl insults at her, mocking her for being just a peasant girl who has no business in an academic institution. Utterly crushed, she returns home in tears, sobbing into her grandmother's arms and wishing she had just been born a noble, or at least a boy. Her grandmother pulls her into a tight, desperate embrace. With tears streaming down her own face, the older woman delivers a harsh but necessary truth. She tells our girl that life is inherently unfair, and while she must accept that reality, she must never, ever surrender to it. Snapping back to the present, our girl wonders why witnessing such a beautiful family moment dredged up such a bitter memory. Noah suddenly turns his gaze toward her, and she instantly drops her eyes to the floor. She quietly wonders if the real reason she feels so incredibly small around him is simply because she envies him, leaving her intensely curious about what kind of privileged, perfect life he has actually lived. Breaking the tension, Noah formally bows out, declaring his royal duties officially fulfilled for the day. The king barely acknowledges him, casually dismissing him to go play polo while cheerfully scooping little Lucy into his arms. Noah lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh, noticing her son's thinly veiled frustration. The queen steps in, gently telling him to go on and take care. Our girl watches the chilly family dynamic unfold until someone gently reminds her it is time for them to head inside too. We cut to the Royal Polo Club, where Noah's 3 favorite aristocratic annoyances are whining about how long they have been waiting. Noah silences them immediately, sharply demanding they get their mallets and protective gear ready. As the nobles scramble to suit up, they loudly whisper among themselves, terrified over who exactly managed to make their ticking time bomb of a prince this angry. Out on the field, the announcer calls the players to the center. Noah grips his mallet like a lethal weapon, his eyes burning with intense focus. As he spurs his horse forward, we finally get a glimpse into his tightly guarded mind. For his entire life, he has been hunted by the blinding flashes of cameras and the suffocating, relentless gaze of the public. The only time that crushing pressure ever washes away is right here on the field. He plays with reckless aggression, shoving his opponents and dominating the turf. One of the breathless nobles begs him to stop using the sport as his personal anger management therapy and find a new hobby, but Noah completely ignores him, driving the ball forward and scoring yet another brutal point. The crowd erupts, baffled by his ruthless scoring streak. For the first time all day, a genuine, unburdened smile breaks across Noah's face. He finally feels like he can actually breathe now that he has escaped the suffocating walls of the palace. But his peace is instantly shattered when one of the nobles rides up, entirely too eager to ask if the beautiful Miss Liberty is really attending the upcoming Maze Garden party. Noah internally groans, completely baffled as to why they are all so obsessed with a woman who actively avoids his gaze like it is an Olympic sport. He curtly confirms she will be there, setting off a wave of embarrassing cheers from the nobles. Yanking off his helmet, a thoroughly exhausted Noah runs a hand through his sweat-drenched hair, looking like a man who has way too much on his mind and absolutely zero patience left to deal with it. Later that morning, our boy is lying in bed, fully dressed from the night before and hiding his face behind his hands. Looking devastatingly handsome despite a glaring hangover, he groans at the clatter of maids bringing in his breakfast. Dragging himself up, he immediately spots the morning paper. Front and center is a massive photo of our girl chatting happily with little Lucy. He tosses the paper down, instantly predicting his father's greedy PR strategy. He figures the king will drag her to every single event possible to milk her popularity, internally deciding to just enjoy the temporary peace her distraction provides. This brings us to a crucial piece of royal lore. Exactly why does our boy absolutely despise the media? To understand his trauma, we have to look at the queen. 23 years ago, she delivered Crown Prince Asura in January, and then completely exhausted herself giving birth to our boy that very same December. She contracted a severe fever that left her permanently frail, meaning someone else had to step up and act as the face of the royal family. By process of elimination, the job fell to the youngest prince. Usher was kept hidden to build mysterious authority. Margaret was a total rebel, and Walter was a walking disaster. This left a tiny, defenseless child to face the absolute chaos of the press. Like absolute creeps, the media would swarm the young prince, blinding him with flashes and aggressively demanding political statements he couldn't possibly understand. He became their favorite prey, and consequently, he grew to violently loathe the press. Back in the present, a carriage ride between the royal brothers is getting intensely awkward. Crown Prince Usher flips through the morning paper in pure disbelief, noting that the guest of honor occupies the first 3 pages like it is her personal photo album. He mentions that Aunt Margaret is absolutely furious with the king for refusing to give the poor girl a single moment of peace. Our boy smirks, pointing out that Uncle Walter's scandal has completely vanished from the public eye, so naturally, their father is going to squeeze every drop of value out of this visit. Usher admits he understands the king's motive, genuinely praising our girl's flawless media answers and her sheer resilience in overcoming the brutal gender and class discrimination at her university. The innocent compliment instantly sets off a dark, protective spark. Our boy drops his smirk, his tone turning downright lethal as he demands to know if his brother has taken a liking to her. Usher glares right back, frustrated that a simple observation is being twisted into a confession. Refusing to drop it, our boy points out that the king has dragged her to at least 15 events in 3 days. He snaps that she might be brilliant, but running a guest into the ground is absolutely no way to treat her. Usher completely agrees, clarifying that he was praising her strength, not defending their father's ruthless schedule, and firmly tells his brother to drop the heavy sarcasm. The carriage falls into a tense, heavy silence. Staring out the window, our boy silently curses himself for letting his brother get under his skin, marveling at how easily the name Olivia Liberty stirs everyone up. Meanwhile, on the day of the highly anticipated Maze Garden party, Margaret is currently waging war in the king's office. She slams her hands on his desk, absolutely screaming at him for scheduling yet another morning event for their guest and treating her like a show pony. The king tries to brush off the nagging, but the queen immediately jumps in to tag-team her husband. She completely defends Margaret, snapping that she had a gorgeous custom gown prepared to apologize for Lucy's little hair-pulling incident, but the fitting was impossible because the king refused to grant a single day off. Cornered and sweating, the king attempts a desperate, innocent defense, calling the queen by her pet name, Trixie, to soften the blow. She viciously shoots the nickname down, ordering him to cancel the entire day's schedule immediately. The 2 women march out like absolute bosses, leaving the king practically in tears at his desk. Strolling down the corridor, the queen confidently remarks that the new gown should have arrived by now, hoping their heavily overworked guest actually likes it. Over in her bedroom, our girl is looking at her meticulously prepared list of interview answers, feeling slightly disappointed that her entire schedule was suddenly wiped clean. Just as she decides to embrace the free time, a sharp knock interrupts her thoughts. The door swings open to reveal a flamboyant stylist rocking bright green hair and makeup straight out of the Wicked musical. The woman marches in, offering a cheerful good morning before aggressively declaring that it is time to get undressed. Standing perfectly still, our girl simply blinks in pure, unadulterated confusion. Our girl is thrown straight into a state of absolute panic as the budget Elphaba aggressively starts unbuttoning her top. Baffled and trying to cover herself, our girl demands to know what is going on. The vibrant woman introduces herself as Jane Ambrose of the Ambrose Atelier, letting out a stressed sigh as she explains that in her 30 years of tailoring, this is her very first same-day fitting. Jane drops the bomb that the queen personally ordered a custom gown for her. Our girl's brain completely spirals, having fully planned to just wear her own clothes, but Jane swiftly shuts that down, insisting that casual wear simply will not do for a guest of the royal family. Cue the medieval torture device. Looking incredibly pale, our girl begs Jane to loosen the corset because she literally cannot breathe. Jane sympathetically apologizes but refuses to budge, warning her that it cannot go any looser and she must stay perfectly still to avoid getting stabbed by a stray needle. Enduring the tight squeeze, our girl internally reflects that the glamorous life of a noble lady clearly comes with its own unique brand of physical suffering. When the fitting is finally done, the result is an absolute masterpiece. Staring into the mirror, our girl looks breathtaking in a gorgeous, off-the-shoulder blue gown. Looking at her stunning reflection, she remembers her grandmother's harsh but crucial advice. The world is inherently unfair, and while she must acknowledge that reality, she must never surrender to it. Snapping back to the present, she realizes that the discrimination and lack of autonomy exist even here in the Herod Palace. The king scheduled her to the point of exhaustion without asking, and even this beautiful dress was forced upon her without her consent. Yet, despite the underlying lack of control, she decides to surrender to the fantasy just for tonight. She wants to be the noble lady inside that imaginary painting of comfort and love, figuring there is absolutely no harm in being a little foolish for just one day. Her thoughts are interrupted as the Queen and Professor Margaret step into the room, both women freezing in their tracks at the astonishing sight of her.
Wow.
The Queen warmly takes our girl's hand, explaining the dress is a commemorative gift and a formal apology for Lucy's little mishap. Right on cue, the little princess trots in, her eyes shining as she hands over a beautiful flower pin as her own personal apology. Deeply touched, our girl blushes and happily hugs the box as the royals leave her to finish getting ready. Our girl asks Jane to add the flower pin to her look. Jane happily obliges, hyping her up by claiming their lead designer would beg to make her his official muse. Our girl laughs off the compliment, but her joy is abruptly hijacked by an uninvited memory of Prince Noah. The image of his cold face and his outstretched, gloved hand flashes in her mind, causing her to visibly flinch. Driven by the lingering, electric memory of their touch, she quickly requests a pair of gloves. Jane provides them along with a chic clutch bag, explaining that since there is no dancing tonight, the women carry empty bags strictly for decoration. Our girl's highly logical engineering brain completely rejects the concept of a useless accessory. Deciding an empty bag is just silly, she securely stashes a specific, ominous item inside right as Margaret calls out that it is time to go. Across the palace grounds, our criminally handsome prince is getting a highly satisfactory business report. His servant praises the massive success of their investment in the Wilhelm Company, noting that every country on the continent has signed a contract for the Magic Dome. However, the servant points out a strange anomaly. The joint patent is registered to Anson Wilhelm and a surnameless Oliver, yet nobody named Oliver exists on the company roster. Our boy completely dismisses the mystery, bluntly stating that as long as Anson is managing the company well, the identity of the phantom co-inventor is entirely useless information. Dropping the subject, the servant dramatically whines about how much he will miss seeing Miss Liberty's beautiful face in the papers, since it is her last day in Herod. Our boy sighs at the theatrics, coldly pointing out that she does not even know the servant exists, making his pity completely unwarranted. The servant tearfully insists he will be vindicated as our boy climbs into his carriage, quietly echoing the word pity to himself. Later that night at the Maze Garden party, our boy is strolling through the grounds, still mentally chewing on that conversation. He begins to genuinely wonder who is actually worthy of feeling pity, but his internal monologue completely derails the second he spots her. Looking absolutely ethereal in her blue gown and flower pin, she is a total vision. Watching her walk away alongside Margaret, he finishes his thought with a heavy dose of self-awareness, admitting that he is the one who feels the pity the most. Meanwhile, lurking in the background, the delusional red-haired lady is caught staring at the Duke, blushing furiously as she plots her next move. To the red hair, our boy is the ultimate wounded beast. She views his mix of absolute perfection and deeply damaged emotional state as an irresistible challenge. Standing in the middle of the garden party, she decides that possessing the Icy Prince is the only way to fill the gaping void in her own life. She is busy soaking up the flattery of the other aristocratic women when the spotlight is violently stolen. Professor Margaret arrives with our girl in tow, and the entire party collectively malfunctions. Stepping out in her stunning blue gown, our girl looks like a literal goddess who just descended from the heavens. The noble women are so stunned they can barely speak, but their all quickly curdles into bitter, catty gossip. They immediately start whispering that the commoner is just playing dress-up, accusing her of harboring greedy ambitions to climb the social ladder. Watching from the sidelines, the delusional red-haired lady remembers the undeniable chemistry between our girl and the prince on the dance floor, angrily biting her lip as jealousy eats her alive. Meanwhile, Margaret is in full mama bear mode. She strictly orders her student not to spare a single glance at the gossiping women, aggressively pointing out multiple different groups of nobles that are absolute no-go zones.
No! No! No!
Our girl playfully asks if she is just supposed to stand perfectly still like a garden statue, teasing the professor for being so overprotective on her last night in Herod. They step up to greet the king and queen. The king is in high spirits, casually calling our girl by her first name and practically begging her to extend her stay. Standing nearby, our boy looks absolutely miserable, radiating an aura of pure, unfiltered grumpiness. Crown Prince Usher notices his brother's foul mood, follows his intense gaze directly to our girl, and is instantly highly amused by the incredibly obvious crush his stoic brother is desperately trying to hide. The king suddenly demands Margaret's presence for a makeshift policy meeting. Our girl smoothly steps up, assuring the professor she will be perfectly fine on her own and promising to call for help if anything goes wrong. Margaret reluctantly agrees to step away but warns her not to wander far. Watching them separate, the queen immediately summons her head maid, issuing strict orders to keep our girl under maximum surveillance. She commands the maid to use the royal name as an excuse to block anyone from the harassment list who tries to approach her. If our girl decides to enter the maze garden, a royal shadow must follow her. The maid suggests it would be far safer to just keep the guest confined to the main garden, but the queen flatly refuses. She firmly states that she will not allow the absolute debauchery of high society degenerates to ruin our girl's chance to see something genuinely beautiful. Blissfully unaware of her secret service detail, our girl stands on the balcony, gazing longingly at the massive maze garden. She desperately wants to explore it but knows exactly why her professor warned her to stay put. Lurking nearby, the delusional red-haired lady and her squad of mean girls are watching our girl like vultures. A pink-haired noblewoman snickers that the commoner has probably never seen anything so grand. Sensing the perfect opportunity for sabotage, the red-haired lady flashes a deeply evil look and suggests they personally escort the guest into the maze, leaving the unspoken threat of abandoning her inside hanging perfectly in the air. The squad completely understands the assignment. The pink-haired girl approaches our girl on the balcony, flashing a sweet, innocent smile that makes her look like a harmless little rabbit. But the second she gets close, the rabbit clamps down on our girl's arm with the iron grip of a predator. As the rest of the noblewomen swarm around to trap her, the pink-haired girl cheerfully insists they show her the way inside. Despite the sugary sweet invitations, our girl looks at their perfectly painted faces and instantly clocks their absolutely malicious intentions. Our girl politely but firmly attempts to reject the invitation, using Professor Margaret as her perfect excuse to stay put. But high society bullies don't exactly take no for an answer. The pink-haired menace immediately goes on the offensive, mockingly asking if the commoner thinks the royal gardens are secretly dangerous. Our girl's anxiety spikes, and she nervously clenches her entirely decorative purse. Without missing a beat, two of the noble women flank her, latch onto her arms, and physically drag her into the labyrinth under the flimsy guise of offering a personal, protective tour. Fortunately, the queen's head maid is watching from the shadows and immediately sprints off to sound the alarm. Deep inside the twisting hedges, the mean girls completely drop their friendly act. When our girl plants her feet and declares her tour is officially over, one of the aristocrats actually has the audacity to grab her chin, sneering that staying is not a suggestion. Our girl sharply swats the hand away, coldly reminding the group that they possess absolutely zero authority to order around an official guest of the royal family. Instead of backing down, the bullies just laugh at her defiance. One leans in and venomously whispers in her ear, daring her to go tattle. She taunts our girl, asking who she would even tell and what she could possibly say, sharply reminding the commoner of their untouchable high society status. Another jumps in to viciously mock her beautiful blue gown, accusing her of playing dress-up just to snag a stupid nobleman. Our girl's survival instincts kick in. She knows she cannot win a battle against a group whose sole purpose is to torment her, but she refuses to just cower. Confronting them head-on, she politely asks them to step aside so she can leave. The noblewomen intentionally block her path, with the pink-haired girl smugly asking what happens if they refuse to move. Recognizing the all-too-familiar look of absolute contempt in their eyes, our girl decides she isn't playing their twisted game. She flatly declares that if they won't move, she will simply take another route, turning her back on them and confidently marching down a different path. The pink-haired snake is furious at the disrespect and prepares to chase after her, but another lady holds her back with a wicked smirk. The accomplice points out that a pack of young noblemen just headed down that exact path moments ago. Feigning absolute innocence, the pink-haired girl drips with sarcasm, noting what a terrible tragedy it is that the commoner ran away from their generous kindness right into a trap. Lost in the towering greenery, our girl is trying to calculate her way back when a man's voice makes her completely flinch. It is the exact same trio of aristocratic idiots from earlier. Thrilled to find her isolated, they creepily suggest that since she is lost, it is the perfect time for a private chat. Our girl declines the offer, insisting she will find her own way, but the men refuse to take no for an answer, demanding she come with them. Realizing the danger, our girl does not waste another second. She immediately turns and sprints in the opposite direction. As she runs blindly through the maze, a bitter realization hits her. Barbarism has absolutely nothing to do with social class. The exact same cruelty that cowers and hides before the powerful eagerly bares its fangs the second it spots someone vulnerable. The trio half-heartedly calls after her before quickly running out of breath. Sweating over the fact that she is still a protected royal guest, and remembering Prince Noah's terrifying warning from the other night, they quickly convince themselves to abandon the chase to save their own skins. Their cowardly plotting is suddenly interrupted by the furious head maid and her search party. When interrogated, the three men put on an award-winning display of absolute stupidity, blatantly lying straight to the maid's face about seeing anyone. Utterly disgusted by their terrible acting, the head maid orders her staff to immediately comb the maze. Meanwhile, in a quiet, secluded corner of that very same labyrinth, our boy is peacefully napping on a stone bench, staring up at the sky. The echoing sounds of the frantic search violently interrupt his precious peace and quiet. He sits up with a heavy sigh, grumpily wondering what absolute disaster is causing all this commotion in his backyard. The head maid suddenly emerges from the bushes, completely shattering the prince's quiet solitude. She hastily apologizes for disturbing his rest before nervously asking if he has seen our girl. Noah physically flinches at the question. When the maid confirms the royal guest has been missing for over 30 minutes, he runs a frustrated hand through his hair, immediately ordering her to spread the staff out and begin a sweep. Instead of going back to sleep, our boy actively joins the hunt. A full hour passes. Pulling out his pocket watch, he internally roasts himself for engaging in such a pointless exercise. His ruthlessly logical brain tries to take the steering wheel, arguing that the head maid has probably already found her by now and that the statistical probability of him finding her alone in the dark is incredibly slim. He decides the smartest move is to just turn back, but before he can retreat, the faint crunch of footsteps and a tiny beam of light shining through the foliage violently pull his attention. Deep inside the labyrinth, our girl is officially having a terrible time. Her breathtaking custom-made blue gown is now dragging through the dirt, and she is completely out of breath. Muttering about how utterly hopeless the situation is, she desperately wishes it were just a little brighter. Then, her engineering brain finally kicks in. Remembering her brilliant foresight, she reaches into her supposedly decorative clutch and pulls out the ominous item she packed earlier, a fully functional torch. Flicking on the flashlight, she illuminates a new path and attempts to navigate the relentless hedges, but the sheer size of the maze quickly shatters her remaining patience. Tears of pure frustration well up in her eyes as she completely drops her polite facade and starts loudly roasting the royal landscaping. She shouts at the bushes, calling the sprawling garden a massive, perverted waste of space. She aggressively complains about the total lack of signage, the missing lanterns, and the absolute absence of braziers to keep a person from freezing to death, accurately deducing that whoever designed this botanical nightmare was either a paranoid freak or a massive pervert. Standing just on the other side of the hedge, Noah hears every single word of her absolutely unhinged architectural review. Completely taken by surprise, a rare, genuine smile breaks across his stoic face. He knows the most efficient move is to simply walk around the wall and retrieve her, but the entertainment value of her angry rambling is simply too high. Instead, he quietly trails her from the other side of the greenery, silently laughing to himself as she continues to cry and violently critique the garden's terrible layout. Finally taking pity on her, his voice cuts through the leaves. He smoothly instructs her to keep going straight and take the path on the left, casually adding that she needs to just look ahead and walk unless she plans on spending the night in the bushes. Recognizing that signature icy tone immediately, she breathes his name in relief and dutifully follows his verbal breadcrumbs. She rounds the final corner and finally spots him. Standing there looking like the ultimate male lead, our boy simply reaches his hand out to her. Staring at his stoic face, our girl experiences a sudden moment of pure clarity. Yes, he is cold and utterly indifferent, but unlike the toxic aristocrats she just escaped, his eyes hold absolutely zero malice disguised as kindness. There is no hidden contempt, no petty jealousy, and no vulgar sneering. Around him, she just feels a remarkably calm, uncomplicated sense of safety. Without hesitation, she reaches out and grabs his hand, locking him in an intense, silent stare. Meanwhile, back in the brightly lit ballroom, the anxiety is officially spiking. Princess Margaret and the Queen look dangerously impatient as the head maid bows deeply, apologizing and promising to find the guest of honor as soon as humanly possible. The queen is absolutely not having it. Radiating pure, unfiltered boss energy, she coldly orders the maid to round up the specific young noblewomen who dragged our girl into the maze and bring them directly to her. And that's the end for today's recap. If you had fun, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support keeps the recaps coming. Choose your next binge. At the top is a crowd pleaser, and the bottom is the latest chaos drop. Thanks for watching. Stay comfy, keep your popcorn ready, and I'll see you in the next one.